Hello everybody and welcome back to Typical City. The Premier League, is it destroying itself? Is it eating itself? And do Manchester City fans have a reason to be worried? No, is my straight up answer to that one, but the first question is still very much up in the air and unanswered. And I'm concerned for the entertainment factor, the excitement factor, the transfer window. As a football fan, and I'm sure you can relate, if you are at all interested in football, the transfer window tends to pique your interest, doesn't it? You start to get a little bit excited, fantasizing about certain players donning your football team's shirt. Whipping it on and playing for your team and playing out of the skin is the ideal scenario as well. And bag full of goals, bag full of whatever player you sign, you want them to be the best in their position. That excitement, dead. It is dead in the transfer window, and that's the reason why my answer is no. Manchester City fans do not need to worry about this transfer window. I know we've got specific details, so zoning in on Manchester City with this being a Manchester City channel. Zoning in our specific problems, you've got the Alvarez, who sounds likely that he could be on his way out. There's still a fee needs to be met, so I'm waiting to see if Atletico Madrid are willing to pay up on that one. Separate point. But if he goes, are we replacing Alvarez? The Rodri saga. You know, are we going to have a cover for Rodri? Are we going to go through another season being overly dependent on Rodri in midfield with zero cover? Someone who can play as alongside him and potentially cover for him in the event that he may be absent for a game or two, God forbid. You know, Kyle Walker as well. Are we looking at replacing a right back? Ideal scenario, City come with a brand spanking new right back, a world-class defensive midfielder with Bruno Guimaraes not being one of them, because City are not willing to meet the asking price of Newcastle with the release clause. That's gone now as well. Alvarez as well. Are we going to be spending that money that we could potentially get for him as well? All scenarios that I think City fans alone are focused on, but open the door a little bit, expand the picture, and look at the Premier League. So I spoke to Stefan Borson recently, who told me that he believes the lack of spending across the Premier League is precautionary, which for me, I would suggest is a lot of the PSR rules. If you look at what the rules that have been brought in last season, the sanctions that Forest and Everton all received, with Villa floating very closely, Nottingham Forest as well. They were so close to relegation, Everton as well. They were nearly relegated because of the PSR rules. Now the Premier League, and these PSR rules, by the way, they came in to stop predominantly Newcastle. The FFP was for Manchester City, and the piss poor attempt to stop us from spending money and trying to prevent the growth of Manchester City, keeping the top at the top and the bottom at the bottom, and everything is nice and hunky-dory for the big red clubs, your Arsenals, your Liverpools and Uniteds. They can continue spending, blah, 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 blah. Didn't work out that way, did it? Once we've established ourselves, well, we failed in stopping Manchester City. PSR rules come in, and that's to stop Newcastle. But what they've done in this process, they haven't looked at the wider picture, and they've killed the Premier League. The spending of Manchester City is not the only lack of spending in this league of ours. You only need to look across. So I've got some figures here for you. So I don't want to pretend I am some financial expert, but these are the figures for player net spend. So I can already hear the financial experts out there going, well, player net spend is not the only net spend you need to worry about. You need to worry about commercial, and blah, 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 blah. I understand there is other revenue streams to a football club, and players in and players out is not the only comings and goings financially at a football club. Well aware of that. This is for the entertainment factor. This is for the reason why is there no players coming and going, because I'm a fan. I'm a simple fan like you. I imagine you are a simple fan like me who wants to just watch the best players play for their club and sign the best possible players. That's exciting. And when the season starts, we get to see it. That's exciting. There are some with Savio. I'm excited. I'm buzzing. I'm absolutely buzzing about the idea of Savio. I would like a couple more. And I think a few of the Premier League clubs, more than a few, pretty much all of them would probably like to see a few more. Ideally. But let's show you these stats. So this is the 2023 summer transfer window of player expenditure and player incomings, with a total column on the right hand side for each club's player net spend. And as you can see in the 2023 summer transfer window, only 4 clubs, which are highlighted in green, were making a profit on player comings and goings from their net spend, that being Brighton, Everton, West Ham and Wolves. Wolves who cashed in on Mateus Nunes very near the end of that transfer window, if you remember that. But that just goes to show the other clubs are happy to spend, and spend big, with 9 of those clubs that are listed in this 2023 summer transfer window. 9 of these clubs are spending well over £100 million net spend each. 9 clubs. That's an astonishing amount of money. That equated to a total of just over £1.265 billion net spend. That's a lot of money. That's a reasonably large chunk of change, to be fair. You compare that to 2024, straight away you can see the green columns, or the cells that I've highlighted there for you. Everyone loves a spreadsheet, doesn't it? Everyone, who doesn't love a good old spreadsheet? Get a bit of maths going and a spreadsheet. That's what you tune into YouTube for. Football and financial spreadsheets. Oh, yeah, don't you just love it? Fucking boring, mate. Anyway, just to highlight the lack of spending and why Manchester City are not the only club that aren't spending. As you can see, you've got 7 clubs so far, so I must stress this as well, that 2024 is, of course, not finished yet. There's still well over 3 weeks of spending still left to do, which it may explode into action, but so far you can see there are 7 clubs that are making profit from the players' comings and goings in the net spend column. One of those clubs is Manchester City. Of course, we signed Savio, we sold Liam Delap for 20 million, Tommy Doyle for 4.3 million to Wolves as well. Taylor Harwood-Bellis as well, 20 million pounds we sold him for, which is a lot of what the PSR rules do. There is a loophole there it's a loophole or a flaw in the rule that players sold can be reported as immediate income in that financial year. Players purchased can be spread over a 5-year spell, amortization in other words. So if you sign a player for 35 million, you could spread that for roughly around £7 million per year. But if you sell a player for 35 million, you can go bang, 35 million that year. So that doesn't quite feel right to me at all. It skews the market completely for me, and I see that as a complete flaw and a potential loophole that I think Premier League clubs will absolutely maximise. And what it does do is it encourages you to sell your academy players, which isn't that going against the idea of what the Premier League want? They want to promote from youth. Homegrown talent is now considered a pure profit. They want to encourage the sale of and City are doing it, by the way, and I mean we're doing it because of our first team. How do you get into a Pep Guardiola first team when the quality is there? But lesser clubs would want to promote within their youth ranks as well, and don't quite have the first team that Manchester City have. So they have more chance, their youth players have a bigger chance of getting into their first team, because the gap between first team and youth academy is nowhere near as big as Manchester City. So City have good reason to sell from their academy. But we're also encouraging lesser clubs now to sell from their academy just to stamp that immediate profit into the incoming column for that financial year. Doesn't that go against the grain of promoting youth and grassroots football and all of that nonsense that the Premier League claim that they're all about? Yet with these rules that they've brought in, it's just stifled all of that. It's killed all of that idea for me. And it's like, get rid of the youth academy because we need the money. Now we do because of the PSR rules. So I wanted to quickly go through the lists again. So I'm going to quickly show you here again, 2024 summer transfer spending. So as you can see, like I said, 7 of the clubs are making a profit as of right now. The rest of the clubs are all spending money. It's interesting if you look at Liverpool there, who've not spent a penny coming in or out at Liverpool. So again, City fans, I just want to reiterate that if you look at Liverpool, who could potentially be one of our closest rivals, they've not spent a penny. So there's no reason for us to panic, because our squad that is there right now, obviously if we lose a player like Alvarez, that may change. We've added Savio to that squad. It won the league. Okay? Arsenal, okay, they've spent a fair bit of money. They've had to finish off the deal for David Raya for their goalkeeper, which is £25 million they've had to fork out in this summer of transfer window. Then you've got the Calafiori, which was 42 million from Bologna, which is a reasonable amount of money. But are Arsenal and Manchester City, the gap between the two, a Calafiori away? Arsenal need more. They need more to close the gap on Manchester City, because we've added Savio. We've got a better goal threat now. You know, you lose Alvarez and it evens itself out. Obviously, there's a long way to go. But the idea that it's panic, 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 just look around you. Look around you, around the Premier League. No one's spending out of the fear of the points. And this is the Premier League's doing. They've done it to themselves. In an attempt to stop the likes of Newcastle's growth and Manchester City's growth, they've stopped the product itself. Themselves. The Premier League is no longer an attractive transfer window anymore. I'm just going to get back to these spreadsheets, which I'm sure you're all absolutely loving. Spreadsheets, by the way. Just to give you a total column as well, I'll pop them on the screen here for you. So that last season, 2023 summer transfer window, 1.2 billion was spent, net spend. 2024, so far, 365 million euro net spend. So nearly a billion, just under a billion difference between last summer's transfer window and this summer's transfer window, which still time to go. Clubs could explode into action all of a sudden, but £1 billion in the space of 3 weeks, I don't see it. I think this is going to be a substantially slow, inactive transfer window. And how does that sit with you as a football fan? Not just a City fan, as a football fan. How does that sit with you? Because our product, the Premier League, has become boring in this transfer window particularly. People will say, well, the Euros are playing a part. They've played their part. Long gone. The Olympics have played their part. Okay, fair enough. There's so many players out there that were never involved in either of those tournaments, whether it's Olympic football or the Euros. Plenty of transfer business can happen outside of international tournaments. Stuff has happened. The 365 million has been spent, but it's nowhere near what was spent last summer, which I find concerning for the entertainment factor. What do you think, Blues and general fans? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up silver.